So this is the portrait of a lady by Kushwant Singh, and the important points are the thought was almost revolting. What thought was almost revolting? That the grandmother was young and pretty once upon a time. An expanse of pure white serenity. This means she was really, really beautiful and she was very pure. An expanse of pure white serenity, very pure, very beautiful, not pretty. A turning point, a changing point, and we will be discussing these points, important points, as we do the chapter. Accepted her seclusion with resignation, loneliness, seclusion. With resignation, she resigned to everything and remained lonely. There was a reason for that. As we read, we will understand. And then what happened was when Kushwant Singh went to city school, she was left alone because her childhood, the child who was Kushwant Singh when he was in the village, was a wonderful companion to her. But that companion was lost in the melee of the city life, and the grandmother was resorted to being alone with sparrows. That is it. Veritable bedlamp of chirplings, troublous rebukes, and the sagging skins of dilapidated drum. All this lines we will study as we move on the chapter. We begin our story. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband, but that was hard to believe. Means the grandmother was old, and she has been old for the last 20 years. And it was very difficult to believe that this lady, who was so old, could once be young. So they never thought about this lady that she could ever be young also. Then they say that my grandfather's portrait, which hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room, he wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest and looked at least 100 years old. He did not look like a sort of a person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. So the grandfather was very old. His picture was on the mantelpiece. He also looked like a person who was always old, never could have a wife or children. He could only have grandchildren. Means he was so old that Kushwant Singh, right from his childhood, had seen him old only. The grandfather and the grandmother. So he could never think that these people could also be young. That sort of a thinking was embedded in Kushwant Singh's mind. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, as the thought was almost revolting. It was a revolting thought. How can this lady, who's been as old as she is today, for the last 20 years I have been seeing her, it's impossible to even think in the wildest of the imaginations that she was ever young. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child. She told us about the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified. What absurd means? Absurd means illogical. Absurd means illogical. He says that, Kushwant Singh says that when the grandmother used to tell us that she used to play games when she was a child, it was quite absurd. Absurd here means illogical. This is not possible, Granny. This is not possible. That you were young, you were playing games which we are playing. Fine. This is not possible. And undignified on her part. Undignified means disrespectful. How you can be playing like kids? You are a different person. A serene, pious, pure granny. You cannot be a child jumping around in the houses and doing things like we children do. And this was considered like the fables of prophets she used to tell us. Fables means the fictitious stories with moral teachings of those sages and saints and kings and queens of yesteryears, of prophets and saints. But this was like a fable to us that, oh my God, Granny, you were also young one time. You were a child. Oh no, I don't believe this. Right? So that's what Kushwant Singh thought of his grandmother because she was very, very old. He had always been sort of short and fat and slightly bent. Her posture was, she was short, she was fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain that she had always been as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. Again, the same thing. She was slightly bent, she was old, and Kushwan Singh says that she was so old that we were pretty sure that she could not be older than that. She would be like that for ages and ages. And we've seen her like this for last 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. This is a beautiful line. Means she was never pretty. She was beautiful. The beautiful word over here means her personality, her attitude, her overall behavior, the charm she had, the serenity, the peace she had, that satisfaction on her face, that made her beautiful. But of course, because of the wrinkles and everything, she could never have been pretty. I mean, that's what the facial beauty could not be there, but she was really beautiful. A beautiful human being, a very, very good human being. She hobbled about the house in spotless white, with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop, and the other telling the beads of the rosary. So what she did? She walked. Hobble means walked in an awkward way, limping or something, and in spotless white dress, and stooping, having a bent body, and having the string of beads for keeping count of the number of chants made during the religious prayer. You may use that rosary, the beads of rosary, like we do, like the sages do. There's a mala jap there that is called the beads, that is called the rosary. And she always tended the beads of rosary, saying the sacred mantras which we say. Fine, in her case, she must be saying something, Vaiguru, or maybe Jairam, Hiram, fine, or whatever. Fine, whatever you want to say. You can even learn your lessons. I remember learning those tables with the beads of rosary. My granny told me, and that was pretty useful method of learning. One to the two, two to the two, whatever. Fine. So that was a wonderful way of doing it. These are practices which are gone now. Anyways, we come back to the chapter. So he was doing this, telling the beads of her rosary always, and hobbling around, moving up and down the house, and her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Her face was having wrinkles, puckered, and was needs face was contracted, having wrinkles everywhere, and lips always moved. He was always chanting those prayers. Always. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. What does it mean? Pure white, expanse of pure white serenity means refers to calm, relaxed, and peaceful character of author's grandmother. She was relaxed, peaceful, very, very contented. Contentment means state of happiness and satisfaction. Very happy, satisfied with herself. The person who doesn't have many needs is always a satisfied, contentful man. If you talk to that person, you yourself feel good. Certain sages, certain people you talk to, they are very contented. The sort of wisdom emulates from them, and you feel peace when you talk to them. On contrary, when you talk to some people who are having a lot of trouble, tribulations, and storms over them, around them. You talk to them, you think that peace will never come to the world. There are so many problems. These days, we talk to few people. Some say this COVID will go. Things will be very soon, very soon. Things will turn out to be good and we'll be back to our life. Some who are negative, no, this is not going to go. I read these WhatsApp news, which are, of course, all fake. 80% world will be over. 90% world will be over. till September, this will happen, that will happen. Nothing is going to happen. Don't worry. Be peaceful, be happy, be relaxed. Everything is going to be fine. If a person says this, you feel so good, you feel relaxed. So that is what kind of lady she was. Relaxed, quiet, peaceful. An expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and content. My grandmother and I were good friends. That comes the time of Kushwant Singh's life when he was a child. It says, my grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. And we were together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for the school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song while she bathed me and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. The prayers she was saying, he says that the granny would say those prayers so that I could listen and understand and even learn by heart. But I listened because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen, tie them in a bundle and hand it over to me. Old time schools. The child used to go to a village school. So, what is this village school all about? What is this slate all about? I'll show you. This is the wooden slate, and this wooden slate was used by Kushwant Singh's. Come back to the chapter again. Now, other than ink pot was there, a red pen was there. What used to happen is a wooden slate was made, a bamboo pen was there, which was called kalam, and earthen ink pot was there, which was called dawat, and this wooden slate was called takhti, and kids used to write on it. And every day, this used to be cleaned, and yellow chalk would be applied on it, and it would be set in sun to let it dry. Once dried, it would be used again, and this process would repeat every day. Every day, you'll clean it, clean the wooden slate called takhti, take it to the school, write it there once, come back, clean it, do the homework which was told to you by the teacher to write, and you take it back, and in one day you wrote it twice. So this was a beautiful exercise which children of yesteryears did. This made their handwriting beautiful. We lack this skill. Definitely, we lack this skill. But on the contrary, we've learned the skill to type. We are technically sound. They might not have been. Fine. So everything has its positives and negatives. Plus, there were other things, other old nuances of those schools. After the school got over, or just before the school got over, in fact, these children got together. They would learn tables. They would learn tables of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 18, 19, 20, plus tables of 0.25, 0.50, 0.75, 1, 1.25, 1.50, 1.75, and so on and so forth. And hence their maths was fantastic. All these calculations on the tips. Anyways, that was our ancient, old, not very ancient, in fact, old system of education which lasted, in fact, still lasts in these village schools. If you go to these village schools, it still is there. So Kushwant Singh had studied in such a school. Move on. What happened? After a breakfast of thick, stale chapati and a little butter, sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. Stale means which are no longer fresh, pleasant to eat, hard, musty because they would have been left from the dinner last night. So those chapatis were carried for the village dogs. This grandmother was a very kind hearted lady. She had wonderful, nice relationship, not only human beings, also with animals. She cared for animals a lot. Now, my grandmother always went to school with me because school was attached to the temple. She went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of veranda singing the alphabet or the prayer in the chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. The time the village dogs would meet us at the temple door, they followed us to our home, rowing and fighting with each other for the chapatis. And my parents were comfortably settled in the city. They sent. This was the whole chore every day. What happened? Grandmother would dress him up, set his bag, take him to the school, village school. Village school was near the temple. Grandmother would do all those prayers and all in the temple, and the boy will be in the school. After the school got over, both of them again came back, and on the way they gave these bits of food or these chapatis to the village. And now the second phase of relationship is going to start when the parents were comfortably settled in the city. Is sent for us, they called it, and that was a turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in the motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in courtyard of our city. Imagine. Things changed. They moved to the city school. Now they are not living in going together. Fine. Now what is happening? There are no since they are not going together. There are no streets where dogs are there. She has taken to feeding the sparrows. Yes, they are sharing the same room. Still, they are sharing the same room. As the real years rolled by. Now what happened? As the years rolled by, as the years moved on, as the years rolled by, we saw less of each other for some time. She continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and a little things of lesson science and learning. She would ask what the teacher taught, what happened in the school, and he would tell that the English things, English words, and the Western science was taught. The law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. Hope you all remember what Archimedes' principles and all is. Anyways, this made her unhappy. This is a very important line. This made her unhappy. Why does this make her unhappy? Grandson is studying well, is doing well in the English school, but this made her unhappy. Why? She could not help me with my lessons. Number one, the reason lies she is unable to help him in his lessons. Next point, she did not believe in things they taught in the English school and was distressed that there were no teaching about God and scripture. She was not happy because the God and the scriptures are not being taught. All science and other facts are taught, which she doesn't understand, and hence she was unhappy. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. Music is wonder to our ears these days. Wonderful, we love it. But the old people didn't like it. Quite ironical. But yes, the old people, even my own grandfather, when I was a young boy, he would not like it. I would listen to radio songs. Of course, these cassette players and all these things were there, but we were not allowed to. At all times, we were not allowed to. Certain times, we were, of course. The radio songs we would listen at a very low volume because it was not liked by them that you sing or you listen to songs in a loud volume and you dance it. That was not appreciated by the same is happening here. She didn't like it. Music lessons. Now, what happened? She was very disturbed. She was not unhappy only, she was disturbed. Now, see this. To her, music had lewd associations. Why? Lewd associations means indecent or obscene. Lewd, Lewd, means indecent or obscene. Not good. not in the realms of decency. It was a monopoly of harlots and beggars, not meant for gentlefolk. Harlots and beggars. I'm sorry, harlots, the prostitutes, beggars who beg for food. So she says this has that low association. That sort of thinking was there in her mind, and that was not meant for gentlefolk. Henceforth, music lessons should not be given to children, according to Kushwant Singh's grandmother. She had nothing but her silence meant disapproval. She said nothing. She kept quiet. And the silence meant disapproval. She rarely, she rarely talked to me. She didn't talk to me because now she believes that I am going into the world of indecency. Fine. And the things which I am doing is not supposed to be done in decent families. I over here, of course, means Kushwant Singh. So she didn't like that he learned music, so she stopped talking to him. This is the very important phase of the relationship between the grandmother and the boy, Kushwant Singh. That the grandmother stopped talking to him. The reason is music. Science English was fine, but music made her really angry. And remember the word used by the author, disturbed. Stop talking. Now next phase. When I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. So far they have been sharing the same room, but now a different room was given to the author. I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. The friendship common link was snapped, break suddenly, completely. My grandmother accepted her seclusion of course being state of being alone and accepting resignation. Fine. Grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. Remember, I told you in the beginning. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. Spinning wheel, charka, she would be spinning with it. Fine. And she didn't talk to anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoon, she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows. Remember her love for animals. Fine. Love for life, that is. While she sat in the veranda, breaking the bread into little bits, hundreds of little birds collected round her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirpings. What is the meaning of veritable bedlam of chirpings? It means the refers to the noise and confusion caused by the chirpings of the sparrows, the sounds of the sparrows, that beautiful, nice sound, which we can't hear now. Of course, during this lockdown, I've been hearing so many birds around, and it's a beautiful feeling. Nature is coming back to us, isn't it? So that's all. A beautiful, lovely feeling. Some came and perched on her. Perched means sat over her. Perched, bedlam, of course, forgot to tell you. Bedlam is confusion. Chirping is a noise of small bird. And perched is resting on something. The bird resting on something, resting on the grandmother. Right? She smiled but never shooed them away. Shooed them away? She never shoot them away, make a person or animal go away by shouting or saying, shoo! So she never shoot the birds away because she loved them. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. So that used to be the happiest half an hour of the day for her, being with the sparrows, the birds. She was very happy with the birds. So next, when I decided to go abroad, now the next phase, the grandson is going abroad, foreign, London. When he goes abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. Definitely, the grandmother would be very upset. Fine, I would be always, I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, one could never tell. What is the meaning? At her age, one could never tell, but she was so old, 80 plus, and going out for 5 years, you don't know when you come back, will she be alive or not? That is the meaning. At her age, one could never tell. But my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She was not even perturbed. She was not even bothered. She came to leave me at the railway station, but did not talk or show any emotion. Emotionless, I told you, pure white serenity, very calm, very peaceful. She did not show any emotion. Her lips moved in prayer and her mind was lost in prayer. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. Still, silently, she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the most moist imprint as perhaps last sign of a physical contact between us. Cherished means I remembered that beautiful, nice sign of that kiss of the grandmother on my forehead. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. She was there at the station receiving him. She did not look a day older. Of course, she was as old as she could be, so she didn't look a day older. She still had no time for words. And while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with the sparrows, whom she had fed longer with frivolous reproofs. She clasped, held him tightly, and loved him, but didn't utter a word. And her happiest moment was still with those sparrows, mine, whom she fed longer with frivolous revokes. Frivolous means not having any serious purpose or light habit. Frivolous rebuke. And rebuke means light hearted scoldings. When you keep scolding somebody with love, affection, hey, you, what are you doing? Arey, udja, arey, ye karo, arey, wo karo. That sort of frivolous rebukes. She was loving. Means she was so at peace with these sparrows. She used to love them. That sort of things come when you are at peace with somebody, when you're having that confidence of talking to somebody. Okay. She was having that confidence and that love and affection with the sparrows. That even the grandson is coming after 5 years, she did not take time away from her sparrows. She had that time. In the evening, the change came over her. What was the change which came over her in the evening? That is very important. She did not pray, imagine. She did not pray. She collected the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum, and started to sing. For several hours, she thumped the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum, that old drum, which was not very good, sagging beats, and sung the homecoming of warriors. That she was singing those songs of homecoming of the warriors. She had to persuade her. We had to persuade her, ask her to stop to avoid overstraining because she was very old. Any little effort would overstrain her. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. Otherwise, she was praying always. There was only time when she did not pray. Now, the next morning, she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of her last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking. Next morning, because of this overstraining, she was having fever. The doctor said not to worry, she will be fine, but she says, no, this is not going to get over so soon. I'm going to pray because I have omitted to pray. It's possible that this is going to be my last time. We protested. We, Chwan Singh say, we went against her. How can you say this, Granny? This is not possible. You'll be fine. But she ignored our protests. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving, and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. Peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that we, we protested, we objected, but nothing happened. Lay peacefully, quietly. Pallor means pale appearance. The beads of the rosary fell from her hands, and she was no more. She passed away. We lifted her off the bed as it's customary, as is customary in our traditions. We lifted her from her bed, laid her on the ground, and covered her with the red shroud. Shroud is that cloth with which you cover the dead bodies. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to be cremated. Crude stretcher. Crude means a naturally roughly made stretcher, fine, to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room with veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in, all over the veranda, in the room, right up to where she lay dead. A step wrapped in the red shroud, thousands of sparrows were sat scattered on the floor. There were so many sparrows scattered on the floor near her dead body. There was no chirping, but this time sparrows were also quiet. The nature was also quiet at the demise of this lovely, heavenly, nice lady. Imagine this. There was no chirping. We felt sorry for the birds, and my mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs the way my grandmother used to and threw it to them. Sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried my grandmother's corpse means the dead body, corpse off, they flew away quietly. Next morning, the sweeper swept the bread crumbs into. The sweeper swept the bread crumbs into dustbin means the birds also mourned the death of that lady. They did not eat the bread. This shows her affection with the birds. It was not one way, it was two ways. The birds loved her the way she loved the birds. Remember, these animals have a pure affection. If you give them respect, they give you respect. And if you don't, you know what happens. So, this is a story about the grandmother, the portrait of the lady. The portrait over here means the pen picture of this lady. About this is about innocence, friendship, love, connection, kindness, selflessness, respect, and acceptance. It is also noticeable that the narrator loves his grandmother very much, and if anything, both have close is a loving friend. That is it. There is a moving scene of her death. The most moving is about those sparrows, which is really beautifully woven and written by Ushwansi. The whole story is telling us about this lady, a pen picture of this lady, hence it's called the portrait of a lady. Hope you've understood it. Thank you so much for listening. Please do subscribe this channel and like it. I'll be posting more videos with the rest of the chapters and the notes will follow soon. Thank you so much. Good evening.